Your racing thoughts aren't the problem. And I know that sounds strange coming from me, someone who literally built this entire YouTube channel around helping you quiet your racing thoughts. But stay with me for 1 second, because everything that you've been told about how to calm a scattered mind, the breathing apps, the 5-minute meditations, the journaling techniques, the just stop scrolling and everything will be fine advice, it's not exactly wrong, but it's incomplete in some way. And the gap between what you've already tried and what actually works, that's what we're going to be covering today. And there's a specific reason why your mind won't slow down. And once you understand it, I promise you, this might be the most powerful thing you ever did for yourself and for your mental health, not despite how demanding the Ashtanga practice is. And I'm sorry to give it away, but that's the truth of it. But because of how demanding it is, that could be the one thing that you could do to give yourself the sense of completion and reduce the state of the scattered mind. The state of the scattered mind. Be honest, how many times during your work day do you somehow feel like there's 50 tabs open? You're in the middle of one thing, maybe you're making breakfast and you're sitting in a meeting and you're just trying to be there, but somehow your mind just feels like it's somewhere else entirely. It's like there's two parallel shows that are constantly running at once. The stories that your mind is coming up with and the physical actions that your body is engaged in. And when your mind and body are disconnected in this way, they won't cooperate with each other, and somehow, somewhere, there's this creeping sense of dissatisfaction that starts to arise, and you just can't put a finger on it, but somehow it's running the show in the background. And if you feel like there's dozens of tiny, unfinished things that are just circling around in your head, no matter how many times you try and swat them away, they're somehow just there in the background of your mind, then this one is for you. And this video is all about just how to feel that sense of completion and to swat them so that they don't come back. This is called the Zeigarnik Effect. Now, back in the 1920s, a psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik noticed something absolutely fascinating. She observed that when waiters in a cafe were just taking orders, they could remember every single detail of a table's unpaid order, but the moment that the bill was settled, they forgot almost everything. You see, the brain is literally wired to hang on to unfinished things. It keeps them in what neuroscientists call the working memory until they're resolved, and then you can close that tab. It's kind of like a background program that's just running constantly on your computer until you quit the app, until you force quit or click that X. It keeps running and it keeps consuming energy. And in our modern lives, we have dozens of these open loops running all at the same time. Every unfinished task, every unmade decision, every goal that you've been thinking about starting but you haven't quite had the time to get around to. By the way, if you've been considering starting yoga since January or since whenever and you haven't actually gotten around to it, there's a link in the description below to get started. But each of these things is quietly pulling or tugging at your attention, and it's adding to your cognitive load. So that's why you feel this low-grade sense of anxiety constantly in the background, and you've probably just started to think, okay, this is normal, this is just the way things are, this is just the way my brain works. Let me tell you, this is not normal, and here's what's actually driving it. Most people think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, the thing that makes us feel good when something nice happens. But that's not actually the whole picture. Dopamine is a primary molecule of motivation and anticipation. It's what makes you kind of want to go after something in the first place. It's what drove our ancestors to hunt, to build, to create. And because the brain learned that effort leads to reward, we began to create this chemical of dopamine. The real hit of dopamine only lands when you complete something, not when you start the thing, but when you finish it. That's where that sense of dopamine gets released. And it's that deep, lasting feeling, I'm sure you've felt it before, of this feeling of, okay, it's done, I can just close it and let it go now. It's not this cheap buzz of a new notification, but it's the profound satisfaction of having started something worked through it, and then brought it to a close. And so your brain is evolutionarily designed to crave that completion feeling. But the problem is, the world that we live in right now has hijacked our dopamine system. Every single social media notification, the endless scrolling that we have every single day, the processed food, which is designed to kind of like give you the sense of food being irresistible and visually appealing to the eye, but not actually nutritious. Every single thing in the digital world is engineered to give you the sense of quick dopamine without effort, without the sense of real completion. And so you scroll to the bottom of your feed and then you find out there's more to see. You watch one video and then more are waiting. And so this moment of done never quite arrives. Even in our to-do lists, there's always more, there's always like things that we can experience. And that happens when there's a constant stream of cheap dopamine with no real earned sense that's being constantly fed to us through the society that we live in. And so what happens to our brains? It gets bored with the hard things. It loses tolerance for discomfort. It starts to feel like nothing you do is never like enough, that sense of completion is missing. And underneath all of that, we live with a constant sense of anxiety because our reward system is somehow like it's starving and it's broken. And so what we need to do is replace it with a deep sense of satisfaction that comes when we complete something and we earn that sense of completion. Now you might be wondering, why is this unqualified yoga teacher telling me about like neuroscience? So let me just stick to what I know, which is yoga. So I'm going to stay in my lane and just tell you what I've been studying for the last 15 years. Now I started my wellness journey when I was like 14, 15 years old as a teenager when I went and lived in an ashram. But essentially, I've been immersed in this wellness world and I've seen dozens of people go to India and try different things. And what I've realized is that the most common advice we're given is start breathwork, start journaling, like go be in nature. And none of these things are I love these things. In fact, I've incorporated a lot of them into my own life and it's completely changed my life. None of these are wrong. They're incredibly powerful tools, so don't get me wrong. But they all share one thing in common. They don't have a clear endpoint. They don't give you this sense of completion. And so when you sit and meditate for 10 minutes, you sit with your eyes closed, then you suddenly stop because, the timer went off. But was that enough? Did you actually do it right? Should you have sat a little bit longer until you felt that sense of satisfaction? There's no moment of inbuilt closure. There's no moment where you feel like I've done it. And there's no clear signal to your nervous system that says, okay, you've done it, the loop is closed, it is done, you can get up and continue on with the rest of your day. And so this open loop feeling always remains. And the more things we try and pack into our morning routines, whether it's running or journaling or drinking a smoothie or doing all these, cool things, you don't get that sense of closure. And this is where the Ashtanga yoga system is completely different from almost every other wellness practice that you know of. I've been doing yoga since I was like 8 years old and I grew up surrounded by yoga. I'm even here right now in Mysore studying with some of the last living masters from Krishnamacharya's time. Krishnamacharya is the father of modern yoga. And what I've come to understand is the ancient system of Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga wasn't just designed to build a strong and flexible body. It was designed for the Grahastha. Grahastha is one of the 4 ashramas or periods of life where we have jobs, we have families, we have things to do. We can't just spend 10 hours chanting and meditating or being like a monk. So what we need to do is compress all of it into 30 minutes to 60 minutes in the morning. And we need to feel the sense of completion in the morning so that we can carry on with the rest of our duties for the day. And so when we can commit to a practice like Ashtanga, it creates a sense of dopamine of completion for doing the thing, finishing it, and then being able to move on. It helps us create this feeling reliably every single day, over and over again. And let me explain why this works, because you might not be familiar with what Ashtanga even is. So every single Ashtanga practice follows the same exact sequence. There's a clear beginning, there's a series of postures that are performed in the same exact order every single time. You begin with the Surya Namaskars, you warm up your body, then you move through the standing sequence, and then you come to the sitting postures, and you always close the same exact way. So then you do Shavasana and you feel this sense of, okay, all my things are dropped and I can carry on with the rest of the day. Then the practice ends. In Shavasana, the practice ends. There's a clear full stop. There's no comma. There's no wondering if you did enough for your hips or enough for your head or whatever. It is done. This is the feeling that we need. The brain knows, your nervous system knows because you've practiced it so many times. And that signal, that powerful, clear signal, that experience of earned completion, it's the opposite of everything that the modern world has been feeding you and confusing you with. And so when you roll up your mat after an Ashtanga practice, your brain receives this unambiguous signal. You started something, you went through the rigor of it, and then you finished it. And this is not a small thing, because in the world we live in today, there's always so many options to do more, right? But the dopamine of completion gives us this internal sense of satisfaction. And every single time, it's like you come to the mat, you're doing the same exact thing. And so within the practice, there is this system called the Tristana. It's almost like an ancient inbuilt system to train us to have this dopamine of completion. So there's 3 points of attention. You've got the asana, which is the posture itself. You've got the pranayama, specifically the ujjayi breath, the soft oceanic breath that you do in the back of your throat, every single posture throughout the shapes. And then you've got the drishti, which is a specific prescribed gazing point that's designed for each posture. Now, every single moment of the practice, regardless of what asana you're doing, you're trying to hold your attention on all of these 3 things simultaneously. So it's extremely immersive. And the moment that your mind wanders off to something else in the day, it will, every single day when my mind wanders, it's not a failure, but it's almost like, I'm human, this is my invitation to return, and you choose deliberately where your attention goes. Now this is called dharana. It's the act of training our attention to be single pointed. And what you're doing every single time you return your attention, every single time, 50 times in a practice, is that you're building this neurological muscle that the cheap dopamine has quietly been eroding. So it replenishes your ability to tolerate discomfort, for example. It gives you the ability to stay with something until it's done, until you can get up feeling like you've done something. It's the ability to kind of close the loop, and you're not just stretching, you're literally rewiring your brain. And I want to pause here just for a moment, because if what I'm describing is really resonating with you on some level, if you recognize that you've been feeling scattered for way too long and you feel like you never quite complete the practice, whatever it is, whether it's a 30-minute video on YouTube, and you want to get some help, I do this kind of work one-on-one, but in a group setting, in the traditional Mysore style of practice. And there's a link in the description below to book a free call with me. It's just a conversation. There's no pressure at all. It's just to see if the Yoga Mastery program might be the right fit for where you are right now in this point in time. But for now, let's keep going, because I want to show you what this actually looks like in your body. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, and this is why I love the work that I do. It's because the changes that happen through a consistent Ashtanga yoga practice don't just stay on the mat. And I've seen this with my students, I've seen this with my peers here in Mysore. Because our brains have been trained on this cheap dopamine because of the world we live in, it's lost its tolerance for difficulty. It becomes overwhelmed whenever we give it, a focus on long-term thinking or long-term goals. It can seem like you're never able to follow through and that you've just lost your ability, or that our attention spans are getting shorter. But that's not actually true if you have a practice that counters all of those tendencies. Every single time you show up for an Ashtanga practice and you complete it, you're actually training or retraining the opposite of that. You're teaching your brain that hard things are worth doing, that the discomfort is not a signal to escape and do something else, but that the struggle is necessary. The struggle is not a sign that you're failing, but it's almost like a key ingredient for the reward, the dopamine of completion that will follow. And so over time, what happens is that it changes your relationship with difficulty everywhere else in your life. That project that felt impossible to start just feels like, okay, I need to move through this, just like the sequence of postures that I do. Initially, I'm going to face a lot of resistance, and then slowly I'll feel the sense of completion. One posture at a time teaches you this art of staying with it. And whatever hard conversations you've been avoiding start to seem less like a threat and more like something that can be done, that can be completed, a loop that can be closed, so that you're not running this background app always and like thinking about it, mulling over it. And so this is where the Ashtanga practice becomes super powerful. And there's a saying within the Ashtanga practice that you've probably heard before, which is basically practice and all is coming. And I know that can sound like a platitude, but I think that it's pointing to something that's neurologically true, because the practice isn't just building a strong or a flexible body, it's building a mind that knows how to begin, that knows how to persist through resistance, and that knows how to arrive in a way that feels satisfactory somehow on the other side of something that was incredibly challenging, rigorous, and hard. So if you've been someone who's been living with that sense of low-grade anxiety and you don't know what to do about it, and you never feel like you can switch off that mind that's constantly running, then I want to leave you with this one final thought. You don't need to empty your mind. You don't need to journal about all your problems. You don't need to do intense breath work that leaves you feeling like you're hyperventilating. You need to be able to train your mind to dissolve those thoughts by giving it a different thing to focus on. And the most courageous and actually the most practical thing that you can do for your mental health, starting today, not tomorrow, not day after, but starting today, is to give yourself the experience of real completion, of the dopamine of completion that comes from starting something and finishing it. And that's what Ashtanga offers you every single day in a reliable, consistent, sustainable manner that you can do it in a hotel room when you're traveling, well into your 80s, and you can feel that beginning, the struggle, and that sense of completion where the loop is closed, the tabs are cleared, and your nervous system, for once, actually feels like it's genuinely at rest. And this is the dopamine of completion. And once you truly experience it, I promise you, not just understand it, not just hear it because I'm saying this to you, but you feel it in your body after a full primary series practice, you'll understand why I keep talking about this and why this sequence works for thousands of people and why they still follow this even in a world where there's so much variety. Because it's not about exercise anymore, it's about having a medicine for the mind in these days. And if you want to start or go deeper into your Ashtanga practice, specifically to calm your mind, not just be able to touch your toes, and you want to break that cycle of feeling mentally overwhelmed, I genuinely love to talk with you and hear about your story and help you with your goals. There's a link in the description below to book a free call with me. It's a real conversation, just the two of us. There's no see how it goes. And if this video names something that you've been feeling but you couldn't quite put into words, then please do share it with a friend, with your co-workers, whoever you want to share it with. This way, a lot more minds who are feeling like there's 20 tabs open can finally close them. And they deserve to know that there is a way through that's natural, that's time-tested, and that's sustainable. So thank you so much for watching till the very end, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.